Hey folks, it's Abby from Abby of Pellinor, and today I'm going to be talking about the worst books that I read in 2021. So overall in 2021 I actually had a really good reading year. My average rating was above 4 stars, so don't get me wrong, this is a nice small list of 7 books, but dear god are these 7 books bad. Some of them I still own and are still on my shelves, some of them I have long since unhauled. So let's dive straight into them. I'm going to start from the best to the worst. I'm going to be using that ranking with my core pile ratings. That is a spreadsheet made by G from Book Roast. You put in kind of ratings for different categories and then it gives you a score and a star rating at the end. So these are my lowest scored books of the year. I have removed from this some non-fictions that ended up getting just standard 3 stars. They're fine, they're perfectly serviceable and they're good reference books, but they're not bad books, whereas some of these are. So I rate non-fiction and fiction very differently. So coming in at a 3 star with a 6.29 at core pile is one that I got rid of, and that is A Stranger in the House by Shari Lapena. This was so dull. So dull. It was incredibly predictable for a thriller. It was incredibly boring, not that fast paced, and the only reason I remember what happened in this book is because it was that predictable. I do not recommend this at all to anyone unless you have never read a thriller before in your life, in which case you'll probably get some sort of like kick out of the interesting twist in this. But if you've read any thrillers before, just give this one a miss. It's so bad. I was actively annoyed that I'd wasted the time reading it. Then another 3 star coming in at 5.29, so 3 star is quite a big bracket on core pile, and that is The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Now I unhauled this book for a different reason. Obviously I didn't like it, but I actually read a diaglot version of it which it utilises words from your target language and intersperses them throughout the story. I ended up gifting it to a friend of the family who is wanting to also learn German, so he now has that. But this is just the book itself. Diaglot, fantastic. Great little independent Irish company. Highly recommend supporting them. Will link them down below. The Great Gatsby, however. So I get that he's supposed to be a piece of shit, okay? I understand we are not supposed to like my man Gatsby. But I was also just kind of bored and not really understanding the point. Like, the entire point of this is that he's stalking this woman because he likes her. And then he just throws all of these elaborate parties to try and get her to come to the parties, and like stares wistfully across at the lights of her and her husband and their home across the river. Someone please, if you've read The Great Gatsby and you like The Great Gatsby, let me know why. Give me a reason to like this book, because I thought this was the most underwhelming, boring, disappointing classic that I've ever read. That's what these last 2 are really, is just boring, underwhelming and disappointing. Then we move into the 2 star ratings. So this one has a 4.57 on core pile, and I still have this one because I actually DNF'd it, and that is The Bazaar of Bad Dreams by Stephen King. This is a collection of short stories. I got 95 pages into this. I thought this would be a super quick read because I can blast through short stories quite easily. I was so bored I wasn't picking it up. The stories are fine in themselves, the concepts of the stories are great, I really like kind of the ideas behind them, but King's execution, and it feels bad to be saying this about Stephen King, but his execution for me was lacklustre. I was bored, there was no spark in any of these stories, everything was just kind of eh. A lot of them had a lot of problematic aspects in them, which combined with me just finding them meh meant that I didn't care about picking this up again. I'm trying to make myself, because I've only read one Stephen King before, which was The Outsiders. I gave it 4 stars even though it's quite problematic, so look that up. But I did enjoy just kind of the flow of the story, so I'd like to try and read some more from this. But if I don't pick it up again in 2022, then it's going to be unhauled. It'll probably be unhauled the next time I actually go through my shelves. But for now, because it's a DNF, I'm kind of letting it sit here for a bit just to see if I'd like to go back to it. Probably not. It's really boring. Like, Stephen King is supposed to be this well-renowned, beautiful writer that has published so many books and is so good at his craft. I'm bored. I am bored. I don't want to pick it up. Then for a book that I read right at the beginning of 2021, and that comes in at 4.43, being Touch is Really Strange. I read this as an ARC on NetGalley. I had read some of the similar graphic novels before in 2020 and 2019, and so I thought, oh, I'll pick this one up, I'll see how it goes. My main issue with this, it would have been fine, it would have been like an absolutely like fine 3 stars, nothing wrong with it. However, it is written acknowledging the panini. It makes note of the panini and kind of the tough times that we're going through and everything, and then at the end it has a load of exercises where you touch people. And that just rubbed me up the wrong way. Like, especially as someone who, I was living with my parents, but I was isolated from my partner. And so it was a very weird suggestion in this time to like go and touch people. I was like, oh, could this not have waited? Or like you could have put, I don't know. It just rubbed me up the wrong way. No, I don't want to touch anyone. Not in my household. Stay away, thank you. One that I unhauled the day after I read it, coming in at 4.29, is Dark Places by Gillian Flynn. So Connor from Connor Stampanto loved this. I had it on my TBR, so I was like, sure, this fits a prompt I need for this month. I'll pick it up, I'll read it. I should have DNF'd this. I should have DNF'd this after 50 pages, and I was like, no, try to 100. Should have DNF'd it after 100 pages. I didn't. I read the entire thing. It is incredibly boring. There is plot progression, but there's no character progression, and the plot doesn't really progress anywhere that you wouldn't have expected in the first place. It is so predictable, it is so boring. There was so much that she could have done with everything that she set up in this story, and she did nothing with it. The characters are one-dimensional, they don't alter in any manner whatsoever throughout the entire book. Considering we're following someone from childhood to adulthood through a traumatic event, why does she not change? After I read this, not only did I unhaul Dark Places, I also unhauled every other Gillian Flynn book on my TBR shelf. I don't think she's for me. Then also at 4.29, but one that I've kept, is Such a Fun Age by Kiley Reid. So I've kept this because it was gifted to me by Sam from Griff Reads, and I'm really grateful for the gift, and also it's pretty. But when I was reading this, I was chatting with Cachet from Share with the Hobbies about what was happening in this book, and I was annoyed by quite a few things in here. So we follow a young girl who is profiled when she is babysitting a white child. This young woman is black. She's babysitting a white child. She takes her to like a Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, I don't know, style of grocery shop, grocery store, that one, because the kid enjoys it. It's kind of like a Holland and Barrett's, but like a grocery store, like a supermarket, apparently, for other British people. I don't know. And so she's profiled there, a security guard is like called up and she's told that she's like kidnapping this child. She's not. The family has to be called in. Someone has it on tape. And there's this whole discussion about, does she want to release the tape? Is she being treated poorly by the child's parents? And there were a lot of interesting discussions in here, but I don't think they were utilised very well. A lot of the problems that me and Shay had with this book was just that it didn't feel realistic. The responses didn't feel realistic, and of course, again, me saying this, big grain of salt, like the fattest grain of salt, just hammer off a giant chunk of rock salt and put it in this liquid that is my review, because I'm white. And this is about a black experience. However, Cachet is a black American woman. She also agrees with me. So, chunk of salt, but also it's not just me that thinks this. She doesn't respond in any kind of normal manner to these accusations. She doesn't seem to understand that this is racism that is happening against her from all angles, from the woman who is employing her to babysit, from this man who filmed her at the grocery store and then starts dating her and manipulating her. The only good character in this entire book is the child, the infant, the baby she's babysitting. That is it. That is the only good character in this book. Again, no character development. I'm fine with bad characters, but I want them to develop either worse or better, okay? They need to do something. Everyone is exactly the same at the end of this book as they were at the start of this book. The plot has barely moved forwards. It's supposed to be like a really like, oh yay, look what happened at the end of this. Happy ending. But it's not. And I was so disappointed with this because I'd heard so many good reviews and I was just let down. And then my lowest rated, disappointing, bad, worst read of 2021, coming in at 3.57 on my little spreadsheet, is Dr. Jekyll and Mr Hyde with the Merry Men and Other Stories by R.L. Stevenson. This is another book I DNF'd. I read most of the stories. I've not read Olala and I've not read The Treasure of Franchard, but I've read all the other stories in here. Dr. Jekyll and Mr Hyde is a fantastic concept, but very poorly written, and that is kind of how I feel about all of these. The rest of the concepts for the other stories that I read were just fine, and they could have went well with someone's writing that I enjoyed, that I think is competent writing them, but instead we had Stevenson. There is kind of, I don't know if this is a folk tale or if it's real, but apparently Stevenson's wife, when she first saw the manuscript for Dr. Jekyll and Mr Hyde, threw it in the fire. And Mrs. Stevenson, I agree with you, and I kind of wish that you'd grabbed the second manuscript as well. This is just so disappointing. Like, Dr. Jekyll and Mr Hyde is a story that everyone knows of, everyone's heard of, and this is just such a letdown after that. So that one is a letdown. The rest are just bad. The rest of the stories are just bad. Like, I liked the fact that they were like Scottish and had use of the Scots language in there. I did like that. I'm half Scottish. I always like a little bit of that in there. But he just... I don't want to rag on a Scottish author, but it's shite. It's so bad. Like, I'm pretty sure that I'm just going to unhaul this, but part of me is like, okay, this is like so short. I've got 50 pages left, but it's a classic. This is just, it's just badly written. How is it a classic? It is badly written. And that is the very sour note to end on for my worst and most disappointing books of 2021. Let me know down below in the comments, folks. If you loved any of these books, please let me know why. Give me some reason to find some sort of spark in them. And if you also hated them, please tell me, because I need solidarity. Let me know what your worst read of 2021 was down in the comments below as well. If you'd like to see more about how my reading year and my best books of 2021 went, then please do hit subscribe and hit like if you enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching, folks, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!